The seventh rejection didn't come with anger. It didn't come with shouting. It came quietly, almost gently, and somehow that hurt the most. We were sitting in the same cafe where I had first noticed her 3 years earlier. Winter light slipped through the glass windows. Pale and tired, like it had given up trying to be warm, she stirred her coffee slowly, avoiding my eyes. While I sat across from her rehearsing words I already knew would fail, I had loved her patiently, too patiently. 7 times over 3 years I had tried. 7 times I had been told not yet. Not like this, you're a good person. You deserve someone better. This time I didn't even finish my sentence. She sighed softly and said, I told you before. I just don't feel that way. I never will. Never. That word landed heavier than all the others combined. Around us people laughed. Cups clinked. A couple near the window held hands, unaware that a quiet ending was unfolding just feet away. I nodded, because I had learned how to accept rejection with dignity. I smiled because I had trained myself to look strong, but inside something finally broke. For years I had believed consistency could replace chemistry, that loyalty could become love, that showing up every day would eventually matter. I was wrong. She wasn't cruel. That was the worst part. She didn't mock me or use me. She simply didn't choose me. And somehow that felt like being erased, like all my effort had never existed. When we stood to leave, she hesitated, then said something that sealed my disappearance. Please don't stop being you. I nodded again, but I already knew. I couldn't remain the same person and survive this. That night I walked through the city alone. Neon lights blurred through my tears as traffic hissed past on wet asphalt. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, but I didn't answer. I went home, packed nothing, and sat on my bed in the dark until sunrise. By morning, a decision had formed. Not out of revenge. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. If staying meant slowly dying, then leaving was the only way to live. I deleted my social media, changed my number, quit the job that kept me stuck. No goodbye posts. No dramatic explanations. I didn't vanish to be noticed. I vanished to disappear, and as the city swallowed my absence, I made a quiet promise to myself. She would never reject me again, because she would never see me again. Chapter 2. The silence that replaced my name. Disappearing doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly. After the 7th rejection, I didn't cry the way movies show. There was no breakdown, no screaming into pillows. I woke up the next morning and felt empty, not sad, not angry, just hollow, like someone had taken my name out of me. For years, my life had revolved around her presence. Every plan, every hope, every imagined future had her silhouette in it. And now, nothing. I stopped texting first. Then I stopped texting at all. At first, I told myself it was temporary. A few days to clear my head. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And with each passing day, I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. The world didn't collapse without me. She didn't check in. She didn't ask where I went. She didn't notice the absence she had created. That realization hurt more than rejection ever did. I deleted our chat history, not because I hated her, but because reading my old messages felt like reading letters from a man who no longer existed. A man who begged gently, who waited patiently, who believed love could be earned by persistence. I moved apartments. A smaller place, quiet, no memories on the walls. Just white space and silence. Nights were the hardest. That's when my mind replayed every moment I thought meant something. Her smile when I surprised her with coffee. Her laughter when I made stupid jokes. Her voice when she said, "You're sweet, but..." That "but" haunted me. I started walking at night. Long walks through empty streets, headphones on, rain or cold, it didn't matter. Movement kept the thoughts from piling up too loudly. I learned the sound of my own footsteps again. One night, while sitting on a park bench under a flickering streetlight, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. Who am I without trying to be chosen? The answer didn't come immediately, but the question stayed. I stopped posting on social media. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be remembered. Not out of bitterness, but exhaustion. Loving her had drained every emotional muscle I had. Vanishing wasn't revenge. It was survival. And somewhere in that silence, something unexpected began to grow. Not happiness. Not confidence, but peace. Fragile, small, but real. For the first time in years, my life wasn't about being enough for someone else. It was just mine. And that scared me almost as much as it healed me. Chapter 3. The silence after disappearing. By the third rejection, something inside me had already cracked. By the seventh, it had gone completely quiet. People think disappearing is dramatic, that it's a loud decision. But for me, it happened softly, like snow falling at night. I stopped texting first, then I stopped replying. Then one day I stopped being seen at all. I deleted my social apps, changed my number, moved out of the small apartment where every wall still carried her laughter like an echo that refused to fade. I didn't leave a note, not because I wanted revenge, but because I was tired of explaining my pain to people who never listened. Each rejection replayed in my mind like a loop I couldn't pause. I'm not ready. You're a good person, just not for me. Maybe in another life. 7 times she said no. 7 times I convinced myself love meant patience. But patience slowly turned into self-erasure. I took a night bus to a city where no one knew my name. The kind of place where street lights flicker, cafes stay open past midnight, and strangers don't ask questions. I found a small job, a smaller room, and a routine built on silence. At night I walked alone. Rain became my companion. Music without lyrics filled the spaces where words used to live. For the first time in years, no one was waiting for me to prove my worth. That's when the pain changed. It didn't scream anymore. It taught. I started writing, not messages to her, but letters to myself. About the boy who believed love meant endurance. About how rejection doesn't always come from cruelty. Sometimes it comes from incompatibility we refuse to accept. Weeks passed, then months. One evening, in a quiet coffee shop, I overheard 2 strangers laughing freely. No tension. No fear of being too much. And it hit me. Love isn't supposed to feel like begging. That realization hurt more than the rejections, because it meant I stayed when I should have walked away sooner. I looked at my reflection in the cafe window. I looked older, calmer, sadder, but real. For the first time, I wasn't trying to be chosen. I was choosing myself, and somewhere far away without me knowing yet, she noticed my absence. The vanishing wasn't my end. It was the beginning of my return to myself. Chapter 4. The silence changed me. Vanishing didn't happen all at once. At first it was just fewer words, then fewer replies, then entire days where my phone stayed untouched, face down on the table, like it no longer had power over me. For years my world revolved around her reactions, her replies, her silences, her rejections. 7 times she said no. 7 times I convinced myself that patience was love, that loyalty meant waiting, that if I stayed kind long enough, she would finally see me. But something broke after the 7th rejection. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. I stopped explaining myself to people who already made up their minds. I stopped trying to prove my worth to someone who only saw my absence when it benefited her. I stopped checking her online status like it was a heartbeat monitor. The silence didn't feel peaceful at first. It felt empty, heavy, unsafe. Nights were the worst. I'd sit by the window, city lights flickering in the distance, rain sliding down the glass like time refusing to slow down. My thoughts replayed every moment. I should have walked away but didn't. Every apology. I made for feelings that were never wrong. But then something unexpected happened. The silence started teaching me things. I learned how loud my own thoughts were when no one interrupted them. I realized how much of myself I had been shrinking just to fit into her comfort zone. I saw how often I chose her happiness over my self-respect. One night I deleted her chat, not out of anger, out of acceptance. I didn't block her. I didn't post anything dramatic. I just disappeared. Days turned into weeks. I changed my routine. I started waking up early, walking alone through quiet streets, letting cold air remind me that I was still alive. I focused on work, not to escape pain, but to build something that belonged to me. For the first time in years, my life wasn't a waiting room. And somewhere in that silence, I felt something unfamiliar growing inside me. Strength. She rejected me 7 times. But the 8th time, I rejected the version of myself that begged to be chosen. And that's when the real story began. Chapter 5. The day she finally looked back. I didn't disappear to make her regret anything. That's the lie people like to believe. The truth was simpler and heavier. I vanished because staying meant slowly losing myself. Years passed without announcements. No dramatic social media comeback. No revenge success story plastered online. I lived quietly, rebuilt slowly. and learned how to breathe without waiting for her name to appear on my phone. Then one evening, fate tested my silence. I was walking through a winter-lit street in downtown Seattle. Snow falling gently, city lights reflecting off wet pavement. I had just finished a late shift and stopped at a small cafe I used to visit alone. Warm light spilled from the windows. Piano music played softly inside, and that's when I saw her. She stood across the street, frozen in place. Older but not aged. Beautiful but tired. Confident but cracked. Our eyes met for the first time in years. I expected my heart to race. It didn't. I expected anger. There was none. What I felt instead was distance, the kind you only feel after healing. She crossed the street slowly, as if afraid I might vanish again. "Is it really you?" she asked. I nodded. "Hi." That was it. No drama, no accusation, no flood of emotions. Her hands trembled. "I tried to find you." "I know." "You disappeared." "I had to." She swallowed hard. "Why didn't you fight for me one more time?" I looked at her gently. "Because the 7th rejection taught me something the first 6 didn't." Her eyes filled. "What?" "That love isn't proven by endurance alone. Sometimes love is knowing when to walk away." Silence fell between us, heavy but honest. "I think about you," she whispered. "More than you know." I smiled softly. "I don't doubt that. But you never came back." "I came back to myself," I said. And that changed everything. She searched my face, hoping, maybe, for an opening. A sign, a crack. There wasn't one. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared about myself more. As I turned to leave, she called my name. "I rejected you 7 times, she said. But you were the only one who ever loved me without conditions." I paused, then answered without turning back. "And that's why I had to disappear." That night, I walked home under falling snow, lighter than I had ever felt. Not because she finally understood, but because I no longer needed her to. Chapter 6, the day I stopped waiting. By the 6th year after I vanished, something inside me finally changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly, the way winter slowly loosens its grip when no one is watching. I was sitting alone in a small cafe near the river, snow pressing softly against the windows. Outside, couples walked past hand in hand. Scarves pulled close, laughter visible in white breaths. Once scenes like this would twist something painful inside me. Once I would wonder if she was walking like that with someone else. But that morning, I didn't think of her first. I thought of myself, the version of me who had waited, the version who had hoped, the version who believed persistence could turn rejection into love. 7 rejections hadn't broken me, waiting had. For years I told myself I was being patient, loyal, mature. But the truth was harder to admit. I was afraid to let go. I had confused love with endurance. That realization hit harder than any rejection ever did. I remembered the 7th time she said no. She hadn't been cruel. She hadn't been angry. She just looked tired. "I don't feel what you feel," she said gently. "And I don't think I ever will." No excuses, no false hope, no maybe someday. That should have been enough. But instead of leaving, I disappeared slowly on from her life, from mutual friends, from places we used to cross paths. I didn't announce my departure. I just stopped showing up. At first, it felt like loss. Then it felt like emptiness. And now, it felt like space. In that cafe, I realized something else. She hadn't taken anything from me. I had given it freely. My time, my energy, my emotional future, without asking if it was wanted. That wasn't love. That was self-abandonment. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the cup in my hands. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel heavy. It felt open. I didn't need closure from her. I was giving it to myself. Later that day, I walked along the river, snow crunching beneath my boots. The water moved steadily, never stopping, never looking back. I thought about how many years I had stood still, waiting for someone who wasn't coming. And I forgave myself, not for loving her, but for forgetting myself in the process. I deleted the last photos I'd kept, not in anger, not in sadness, just acceptance. They belonged to a version of me that no longer existed. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept without replaying old conversations in my head. No what-ifs, no imagined futures, just rest. This chapter of my life wasn't about winning her back. It was about reclaiming myself. And somewhere in that quiet surrender, something powerful happened. I stopped waiting. And the moment I stopped waiting, I finally began to live. Chapter 7, the day I stopped waiting. I didn't vanish to punish her. I vanished to save myself. For a long time after the 7th rejection, people thought I disappeared because I was weak, because I couldn't handle heartbreak. They were wrong. The truth was quieter, heavier, and harder to explain. I left because staying was slowly killing the person I was becoming. There's a moment in every man's life when hope stops being beautiful and starts becoming dangerous. I reached that moment on an ordinary Tuesday night, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at my phone. No missed calls, no messages, just silence again. 7 rejections didn't sound dramatic when said out loud, but living through them felt like being erased one piece at a time. I remembered the first rejection. She smiled gently, said she wasn't ready. I told myself timing was everything. The second time, she said she saw me as a friend. I told myself love could grow. The third time, she said she was confused. I told myself confusion meant hope. By the fourth, she said she needed space. I gave it. By the fifth, she said she was talking to someone else, but nothing serious. The sixth time, she didn't even explain. She just said, please don't do this again. And the seventh broke something inside me. She looked at me with tired eyes and said, why can't you understand? I don't feel that way. I never will. Never. That word echoed louder than any scream. That night I packed a single bag. No dramatic goodbye. No social media posts. No explanation to mutual friends. I didn't want pity. I didn't want closure from someone who never opened the door in the first place. I vanished quietly. I moved cities. Changed my routine. Deleted her number. Muted every reminder. For the first time in years, my life had no orbit around her. And it hurt. Healing didn't come like a sunrise. It came like winter, slow, cold, and honest. There were nights I almost broke. Moments I wanted to text her just to prove I still existed in her world. But I didn't. Instead, I learned how to sit with myself. I learned how silence could be peaceful instead of lonely. I started running in the mornings. Reading again. Sleeping without anxiety. Smiling without pretending. Months passed. Then a year. One evening, a mutual friend messaged me. She asked about you, the text read. Said she hasn't heard your name in a long time. I stared at the screen longer than I expected. But I didn't feel the rush I thought I would. No anger, no longing. Just distance. She chose her path, I typed back. I chose mine. That was the moment I realized something important. Vanishing wasn't weakness. It was self-respect finally arriving. I didn't disappear to make her miss me. I disappeared because I finally stopped missing myself. Some people don't deserve a final conversation. They deserve a life lived well, far away from them. And that's exactly what I gave myself.